They're fresh, they're from a local farmer preferably, free-range chickens, antibiotic-free. So we're looking for thick whites and a nice plump egg yolk. I like to use a bowl when cracking my eggs because it gives you a chance to pick out any shells. It happens all the time. If you crack it into a bowl first, it's going to be a lot easier to get that piece of shell out. Alright, it's time to fry. So I'm going to do my favorite preparation for an egg, in a skillet at least, and that is over medium. So we've got two very important pieces of equipment here. We've got a non-stick pan and a rubber spatula. This is perhaps my favorite tool in the entire kitchen. And if you ask most chefs, they'll probably say that a rubber spatula is one of their favorite tools in the kitchen. It is so handy. If you don't have one, you should go out to Kroger in 6 months and buy one. Don't need a lot of oil for cooking our eggs, especially in this non-stick pan. So, very low heat for frying an egg in this style. We're going to go for a restaurant quality egg here. And I'm just looking for a little bit of glisten to my oil to tell me that it's ready to go. And when you drop your egg in the pan, you should not hear a sizzle. It should be, your whites should start to turn opaque, but there should not be a loud sizzle going on. So this is a little bit hot, so I'm just going to remove that from the heat. We've got a jet engine burner here. Probably have a smaller burner you're working with at home. So I'm just going to take this off the heat, let the pan cool down a little bit because I don't want to brown this egg. I'm trying to keep it nice and pearly white on both sides. And we're just going to let this sort of sit on the corner. I'm going to cook it nice and slow. And cooking it slowly really accomplishes two things. It allows you to maintain that beautiful white egg on the outside, but it also gives the whites time to cook through, and it allows the egg yolk to catch up. If you went into a super hot pan, your whites would be done like that in an instant, and your yolk and some of those whites in the center would still be raw. So a slow cook on an egg in a frying pan is really the way I like to do it. And you can see these whites on the top are starting to coagulate slightly. I'm going to go ahead and flip this. And the rubber spatula is very handy when flipping an egg at home. I'm going to slide my spatula under here and just very gently we're going to pop that over. Alright, so we've got a nice white on this side. Not overdone. Those whites in the middle are starting to cook through, and our egg yolk at this point should be starting to coagulate a little bit. You can see right here the edge of that yolk has cooked and is sort of turning a pale yellow. So that's a good sign, but you can still see that really deep orange color of the yolk coming through as well, which means that it's not overcooked. And I'm taking this off the heat at this point. One thing to understand about eggs is they cook very fast, and they're going to keep cooking in the pan, whether it's on the heat or off the heat. So it doesn't take much heat, and once you get it going, you can sort of let the residual heat in the pan do most of the work. At this point, the white should be just about cooked all the way through, and you can do a little poke test. If you sort of poke just around the perimeter of the egg yolk, you'll be able to feel that white. That's going to be the thickest part of the white, and it should have a very slight give to it, but it should almost feel like pushing on that part of your thumb muscle, sort of like a rare steak. That's what I'm looking for. So that feels good to me now. We're going to poach this one, and this is a perfect pan for poaching. This is an all-clad straight-sided saucepan, saute pan, and we've got this over a medium-low heat. And what I'm looking for before I drop my egg are just tiny bubbles starting to form at the base of the pan and stream upwards in maybe 3 or 4 spots. So we've got a nice little stream here on the side of the pan. We've got a few more bubbles starting to form in the center of the pan. We don't want too high of a heat. We want it to be just under a simmer here. In the water, I've got a heavy pinch of salt, a small handful of salt, and a splash of white vinegar. And now that I've got some nice little bubbles starting to form, I'm going to slowly drop my egg in, and I let the water sort of envelop the egg in the bowl before I drop it into the pan. So what the salt is doing is A, seasoning our water, so it's going to help to season our egg so you don't have to put a ton of salt on the egg after it's cooked. And B, it is creating buoyancy. So just the same way a human floats in the Dead Sea, an egg will float in salted water much more readily than it would float in unsalted water. And this helps to prevent sticking on the bottom of your pan. So salted water, and then the vinegar is also going to help coagulate the egg whites as soon as those egg whites hit the water. So the heat and the vinegar together are sort of helping the egg whites coagulate and form a nice little envelope right around our egg yolk. I try not to move the water around too much. I just want enough water so that my egg is completely submerged. Eventually this egg will start to float toward the surface a bit more, and that'll tell us that it's done or close to being done. And what we're looking for here is firm cooked whites all the way through and a nice sort of medium runny egg. Looking pretty good here. And we've got a lovely poached egg. Alright, now we're scrambling egg. That means that these eggs are totally whisked into submission, as Julia Child would say. So, giving them a good whisk, all of the whites are totally broken up. You can pull your fork through, and you don't have any big strands of like egg whites that are sticking to it. It's nice and fluid. And I've whisked a little bit of air into there as well, so it's going to make a nice fluffy egg. Whole butter for scrambling an egg. Medium-low heat, maybe slightly higher than you would use for frying an egg. And your egg scramble should come together pretty quickly. Once again, we're looking for no real browning on the egg. And I'm also looking for small curd. I think that's a preferential thing, but for me, the best kind of scrambled egg is still very moist and almost custardy. So I've got my trusty rubber spatula here. We've got about a teaspoon of whole butter, and we're going to let this just come to a foam. And just before it starts to brown, once that foaming subsides, we're going to drop our eggs in, and then we're going to scramble like hell. All right, eggs are going in. Give them a quick second to sort of temper to the heat. Now we're going to scramble. And we're shaking the pan, and we're moving our spatula. And you can see it's starting to All those proteins are starting to coagulate, and at this point, I'm taking it off the heat, and this scramble is done. No more heat. Give it a quick toss around the pan, and we're gonna come over here to plate. You got your mothers, you got your eggs. Happy Mother's Day. So I hope you and all your beautiful mothers are enjoying some nice, fresh, local eggs this Sunday. Happy Mother's Day to all of you, and bon appetit. Cheers.